What's up, y'all? Will here at Schedulefly. This was a special episode. This is with Kristen Rauch, who is Executive Director of EatDenver, which is an association of 275 independent restaurants in the greater Denver area. And it is an extremely cool group. It is a very well-run group by Kristen and her team and the members. They are very active and very good at what they do and do a phenomenal job providing support, tools, resources, advocacy, and events for Denver area independent restaurants and their customers. And I just thoroughly enjoyed talking to Kristen. I had gotten a chance to meet her the week prior when I was in Denver at an EatDenver event called Ed Talks, which is their version of TED Talks. And this was a thrill, and it was fun talking to her. And it's very cool what they're doing. And I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you all for listening. And before we get to this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Pop Menu. Pop Menu is a new partner of Schedulefly, and we're excited to have this partnership. We have a lot of happy mutual customers. And they're just a great business. So they're all about making your day easier and your sales bigger. They will simplify your marketing operations, bring in more guests, and capture customer data for personalized remarketing to keep them coming back. With one super simple to use platform that integrates with most point of sales like Toast and Square and a number of others, Pop Menu starts with a beautifully designed, easy to update, interactive menu that transforms the guest experience online. It includes a brand new website that's optimized for search engines like Google for no additional cost, automated digital marketing, online ordering and waitlisting, and you'll never miss another call with their AI answering solution that costs as little as 47 cents an hour, plus so much more. There is a link to Pop Menu in the show notes here. Check it out. We have a lot of mutual customers, as I said, that use Schedulefly and Pop Menu. They're happy, the product's great, the customer service is great, and the results are great. That's the consistent message that we get from them when we speak to those mutual customers. So check out Pop Menu and check out this episode. Kristen Rauch, EatDenver. More episodes coming soon. Thank you all for listening. See ya.
Hi.
What's up, Kristen?
How are you?
I'm really good. How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for your patience. Just had to jump out of another meeting.
No worries, man. I bet you have a lot of meetings doing what you do.
Unfortunately, this is a lot of meetings for a Friday. I try not to do meetings on Fridays.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, of course. It was nice to see you last week. Did you like Ed Talks?
I had so much fun. I learned so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm sitting outside. I want to make sure it's not like our air conditioner's going over there. It's not too loud or anything.
Nope.
Okay, cool. Yes. In fact, I want to talk about that. But first, do me a favor. Just introduce yourself real quick.
Oh, okay. We're getting right into podcasting.
We're recording. We're live. We're recording live. We're recording. But yes.
I'm Kristen Rauch. I'm the Executive Director of EatDenver.
All right. And give us a 30-second summary about EatDenver.
Sure. EatDenver is a 501c6. We're kind of a trade association. We represent independent restaurants in the Denver metro area. So we have about 275 members, again, concentrated around Denver metro, but we have members in Boulder, Golden, Aurora, Arvada, kind of all around this area. 4 main tenets of our work: government advocacy, so a little bit more active during COVID, but we're involved with any legislation and government groups that might affect the industry. We also do marketing, so we do 3 headline events, community and kind of that networking piece. We host an industry listserv, we do member newsletters, kind of just quarterly happy hours, just connecting people in ways like that. And then the last piece is, did I already say marketing? Marketing, education, advocacy, networking. So yeah, we just kind of try to connect the community as best we can. monthly education programming. Education's the last one. So monthly education programming, just keeping people informed, building a more resilient community. And the core of EatDenver is really that community piece. So connecting people, resource sharing, resource pooling, and then just celebrating the industry that we serve.
It is one incredible industry. I love what y'all are doing.
Thanks.
I have not, there may be other groups out there. So I don't want to say there's not any. I don't know of any. And I certainly have not been connected with any the way I have with y'all that are doing such incredible work for the independent restaurants in their respective community. I mean, what y'all are doing is amazing and matched from what I've seen. So I really tip my hat to that because, you know, and listening to Dana Query, who I've gotten to know over the years, and all the things she's had to say about y'all and what you're doing, and talking to customers that are involved with EatDenver, it's really awesome. So first, just thank you for what y'all do.
Thanks. Yeah, it's not me. It is definitely the board and the people who are part of the EatDenver community who really drive the work.
Absolutely. No, it's listen, it's fantastic. 275 restaurants is that's amazing. That's amazing to have that many folks that are engaged, and they're very engaged. I mean, I came to Ed Talks last week, and which is your version of TED Talks, and I learned a lot. I had a ton of fun. It was very well done, and it was, I don't know how many people were there, but it was a lot. In fact, I sat like on the steps back there because I was like, I don't know seats, but it was really packed, and y'all just did an incredible job with that.
Thanks, appreciate it. You know, we've had problems in the past with people leaving the event early, and this felt like the first time that people stayed for the whole program. So I don't know if people are just in need of that connection piece or actually in need of, you know, the subjects that were covered, everything from mental health to technology and innovation to state of the industry. I think the program was really catered to what's happening in the industry right now and what should be relevant. So yeah, I think it was really successful.
Yes. Well, I mean, personally, one of the things I found to be so fascinating, which would get into a little bit about what y'all are doing, I think, is, you know, I don't remember his name, but the gentleman from Snooze AM Eatery, their CFO, super dude. Yeah. I met him afterwards and spoke with him a little bit, but he had this graphic up, which I've never seen. And apparently it's been on it, you know, I guess it wasn't his, it's been on LinkedIn or whatever, but it was like this, you know, hub and spoke or wheel and spoke graphic with the restaurant at the center and the spokes representing all the different types of technologies that are out there for restaurants now. And there's all these different spokes like scheduling, what we do, or online ordering, or point of sale, or you name it, and inventory management. And there was like 219 logos because each spoke had a bunch of logos. And he's like, that's not even all of them. There's probably over 250 companies. And it really, like it, I'm going to go inside because I want to make sure I'm not losing anything on sound quality here, because I think this stuff's so important. I love what y'all are doing so much.
That's so funny that you brought that up, because my coworker right now is going through that graphic and writing down the names of all those technology groups, so that, I mean, we try to stay informed so that we can, you know, at least have our finger kind of on the pulse of who exists in those spaces, but also from like a sponsorship standpoint, like who are people using, who's up and coming. There's so many people I've never even heard of before.
Well, you know, what was fascinating is I don't even think we were on that, which is, I mean, we've been doing it since 2007, and which I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. I wasn't, you know, I don't know where it came from. There were, it's just the bigger point is like, you know, when we started doing this in 2007, there weren't like tons and tons and tons of restaurant technology companies. And what hit me the other day is that, you know, my company, Schedulefly, and any company that has restaurant technology is competing for where I'm like, I feel like I'm not competing against my competitors as much as competing against that whole world, that whole graphic for time for restaurant owners, which gets me to the overriding point, which is like, it would really drive me crazy to be a restaurant owner, operator, and on any given day,
to potentially have, 250 different salespeople that might be trying to bang on my door and get my attention. And, I spoke to him afterwards. I was like, dude, I just don't like, I empathize. I can't imagine. It would drive me nuts. He's like, Will, I will have 30 emails when I get back to my office this morning, just from being here for a few hours, from salespeople. And I don't know what the answer to that is. And I'm very curious how y'all are managing that, because it seems like something very valuable. If you can manage for a group of customers, whether it's through EatDenver, and I'm trying to think about it here at Schedulefly, like how do we help restaurant owners and operators, figure out, okay, so I've got this need, like here's the next thing I need to solve for, it's inventory management. Okay, well, there's 72 inventory management companies. Like, how do you even begin to figure out which ones are being used by other restaurants, have good reputations, have good customer service, do right by their customers, or, I don't know. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I feel like it's got to be overwhelming for those folks. And darn if they don't need to be spending a bunch of time and energy trying to figure that out. Like, they've got other things they need to do, but they have problems they need to solve too. So like, how do you connect between, I got to solve this problem, but where in the world do I start?
Yeah, that's like the eternal question, right? I mean, even Bill's speech, he was saying that you have to stay informed and you have to know who exists out there, but who has time to do all that research? And so you're right, people are just being assaulted with salespeople and don't have enough time to do research. And so what ends up happening is you use a lot of outdated technology just to keep the status quo and not really have to disrupt and overhaul your whole system. That's where our listserv comes in handy a lot, I think, is like the most powerful part of EatDenver is that resource and referral sharing platform. And so people will post in there sometimes and say, hey, we need to update our accounting services. Does anyone have recommendations? And 15 people are posting in response, I use this person, like I trust this person. And that is just such a time saver. Even for a contractor, it doesn't have to be technology, but just to post and have referrals from people who are also in the same industry, might be from the same, making gross annual sales as you, might be in the same QSR or fast casual or fine dining category as you, and seeing what works is a strength, I think, rather than having to do all that work yourself.
So you have, okay, that's right. Dana has mentioned that. So you've got a listserv. So you can go on there. What do you like? Type in a topic like I don't know, maybe it's freaking pest control or whatever. Like you type in something and you've got, here's what people have said that they use. And okay.
Yeah. So you could go in and you could search through the archive. So, right, you could Google pest control and see what conversations have been about pest control. And they're all kind of threads. Or you can email the listserv yourself and say, I'm looking for reliable pest control services. I'm in this neighborhood. Anyone have recommendations? And then people will respond to your email and that'll start a new thread.
Okay. That is very, very valuable. I had no idea. Honestly, I've been thinking about a lot since. I was even trying to figure out, like, should we do that for our customers across our footprint, like some kind of like, almost like a Reddit thing, like Reddit, you upvote stuff. So hey, I need a point of sale. Okay, well, we use Toast, we use Spot On, we use, Upserve, we use Lightspeed, whatever it is. And then, if you use it, I don't know, whatever, like, but that's, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well,
from what I understand, not a lot of other groups are doing that. And maybe I'm giving away our secrets, but I like resource sharing. So it's like the easiest thing to organize ever. And then you just need good listserv guidelines, obviously, to stay legally compliant and to make sure that, things like that to stay legal. But once you have some guidelines, you can just kind of give the power to the people to refer each other and network with each other. Our listserv is just operators and high-level managers. So we don't have, like, no salespeople are allowed in, no marketing people are allowed in. It's literally just independent restaurant operators. So I think in that way, it's nice because you're not being inundated with referrals from people who are trying to sell you stuff. It's literally just from friends and people in the network.
Right. Yeah. I started talking to people and they were like, well, there's Facebook groups for this, but of course all the vendors, I don't have Facebook, so I don't know this, but they're, they get on there and it's just, I don't know. I had no clue how big of an issue that was. I had never really thought about it. When I listened to him, I'm like, God, that is really wild. So well, you're not, your secrets though, you're like,
It's not a secret. I just told you
no, but like what
it.
what EatDenver is doing, hopefully could be replicated in other big,
Totally.
metropolitan areas. Like it'd be great to have and maybe there is, like I said, I just don't know about it, but Eat New York and Eat Boston and Austin and LA or whatever. Well, tell me a little bit about you and your background and how you got into this.
um it's not as like direct line as you would think. I went to school for natural resource management and agriculture. My whole life I wanted to be a zookeeper, so not doing that. And then moved up to Burlington, Vermont, and was working in anti-hunger work. So around my senior year of college, got really involved in food policy. And so I was working for an organization called Hunger Free Vermont. I was doing nutrition education and this program called the Learning Kitchen. So teaching people how to cook, combining with nutrition education. My organization worked really closely with Senator Sanders and with politicians out of DC for like universal school meals. And we were doing a lot of policy work. And so I'd kind of breached the food area there and actually had my first service experience because that program was through AmeriCorps, which is like domestic Peace Corps. So you make no money. And so at night, I would leave my nutrition educator job where I was a vegetarian and I was teaching people how to eat healthy. And I would go across the street and work at Buffalo Wild Wings. And so that was my first service job. I was a server and a bartender at a B-Dubs. It was traumatic and I worked there for like a year and a half and it was the coolest people I'd ever met. Like my coworkers were insane. It was a guy going to law school at Berkeley. It was a guy who brought the first post-rock music festival over to the United States. It was a woman who was a silversmith. It was just people who I realized it was just a means to an end. I think maybe that's just a Buffalo Wild Wings thing, but really started loving the service industry and realizing that these were really hardworking people and these were really inspiring people and these were really passionate people. And so carried that with me. I moved out to Montana a couple of years after that and was working at a brewery again. And so kind of a different environment, but same service. And then when I eventually moved to Denver, I started back with the Grow House, which is a nonprofit in town who kind of similar to the Hunger Free job, was more food distribution and permaculture education, nutrition education, just anti-hunger work. And so when that seasonal job ended, I was looking on LinkedIn and I saw EatDenver. I was like, interesting. It's marrying kind of my experience with nonprofit work with my service experience and just seemed like a really cool community to be a part of. And I don't think I even started because of the events or knowing who the community was necessarily. I hadn't been in Denver very long, but I just really liked the idea that it was dynamic and that I'd get to go out in the community and make a ton of connection. And so that's how I ended up here.
How long have you been with EatDenver?
I've been here since May 2021, so almost 2 years.
Okay, now when you were in Jackson, because you mentioned recently you were going on a backcountry ski trip, so
I got back Tuesday.
Okay, how was it?
It was great. It was outside of Aspen. So it was one of those 10th Mountain Division huts.
Did you grow up snow skiing?
Yeah. I grew up in New York. My parents had a place in southern Vermont, one of those New Yorkers. And so grew up skiing Vermont. So I can carve ice pretty well. So coming out here was easy.
You grew up skiing on the East Coast. It is like a slice of heaven out there.
Oh, yeah. When I moved out to Montana, everyone was telling me, oh, well, good luck. It'll be really different. And I said, I can ski on rocks. So me skiing powder, this is going to be fine.
Ice, slush, snow, grass, crazy people that
Oh,
can't.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well,
When I was 14, I lived in Switzerland for half a year, and so I've skied the powder thing before, so I'd had some context.
man, I'm so jealous. This is my right here. This is my like greatest ski moment. This is that was in Grand
Oh,
Targhee.
oh,
You ever been to
cool.
Grand Targhee?
No, I've skied Jackson a bunch, but I've never driven around. I've been to Driggs, but I've never skied over on the Idaho side.
Oh yeah, you got to do it. That place is awesome. Well, it was very nice because when I was there last week, you know, Dave and Dana left on Wednesday, but I had been staying with them that week, and you know, left Dave and Dana's house on Tuesday morning, and pointed the car up to Eldora, and 30 minutes later, I was in the parking lot, and oh wow, I mean, you
People
know,
rip on Eldora. It's pretty fun, and there's never anyone there.
there's nobody there. I mean, look, it's not Vail, but you know, if you can get in your car and ski, you know, drive 30 minutes and ski, I would take that any day of the week there, because there's no lines, you know,
You
they
don't
got,
have to be on I-70.
yeah, I mean, it's like a super easy drive. So anyway, I gotta say, y'all got a good thing going out there. Yeah.
It's fun. It was Dave's birthday, yeah.
His birthday was that Sunday. Like I left on the day after your event, and his birthday was that Sunday, and they're out there, and they're still out there. They're in on the Oregon coast. But
Nice.
well, okay. So now one of the things too that you deal with is, you know, government policy and rules and laws and stuff like that. And you all have had your fair share. I mean, I know through COVID, but some other stuff, it just seems like there's a lot going on with hay and with, I know there was something recently about, and I can't remember what, it had something to do with, was it delivery alcohol or?
Okay, yeah, that was a ballot measure last November. 125, I believe, third-party delivery of alcohol. Yeah.
Yes. What was the story with that?
It was just a ballot measure. So there was a couple related to alcohol. 124, I believe, was about wine and liquor stores. Didn't really have an opinion on that. Didn't really affect independent restaurants, but I know independent like liquor stores and wine stores had stake in that. And then the one that we were concerned about was 125, which was third-party delivery of alcohol.
Yes.
So publicly took a neutral stance, but kind of more internally, we're pretty opposed to it. We just didn't feel like the law was well developed enough to take legal responsibility off independent restaurants. So, for example, if a DoorDash delivery driver dropped a bottle of tequila off at your house, even if they checked an ID, if that person then got drunk and did something stupid with a car or hurting another person, for example, the liquor license is still held by the restaurant. And so the restaurant would still be liable for that liquor license and probably lose their liquor license. And so we spoke with some DoorDash reps and we spoke with some representatives who were in support of the bill. And we just didn't feel like they explained it well enough that restaurants would be safe from reparation like that.
What happened with it?
It didn't pass.
It didn't pass?
No, and it was actually really surprising. I think Denver's funny because people were saying there was a ballot measure as well that was for legalizing psychedelics. I think in a therapy context, I haven't seen it recreationally yet, but that passed by a lot, and then third-party delivery of alcohol failed. So I don't know, Denver came together and said support local. I know a lot of the liquor stores and restaurants made public opinion about being opposed to it. So it was a small win, but yeah, it was unexpected.
It seems interesting to me, like being at the crossroads between politicians and government policy and real world business stuff, and, you know, trying to navigate that. I mean, a lot of times there's like ballot measures and policies that are, you know, laws that people want to put on the books that are done with that are done with good intention, but sometimes, particularly if maybe you're in politics and you never run a business, you may not understand the mechanisms and ins and outs of how that really affects not just the business, but the, maybe the employees or their tax situation, or whatever it is. Like sometimes there's things that they sound good, but I would imagine that's got to be an interesting process to try to help people understand, well, yeah, but here's like if that were to come down the pipe and be put on the books, like here's the real world tangible impacts that could be maybe not so good.
Exactly. I like to think people are not purposefully ignorant, and that politicians just don't have time to be educated about everything. And so that's where I think stakeholder involvement in policy is so essential. And if you're going to make laws about restaurants should be involved in that. If you're going to make laws that affect small business should be part of that process. There was a bill that was introduced that was kind of big news in Colorado about a month ago. And, EatDenver's role is not to represent the whole independent restaurant industry. Our role in government affairs is really to keep our membership informed. And if they want to act on certain bills, if they want to get involved politically, giving them the resources they need to do so, and kind of simplifying language. Like our government affairs committee will read through bills and make our own suggestions, but then we'll just give people, hey, if you want to reach out to these legislators, here's their email, here's their phone number, here's a letter we've written if you want to copy this template, but we're not forcing you to make a decision. We're not forcing you to act if that's not in your best interest. And I'll never go and say, I speak for the whole independent restaurant industry. I think EatDenver's we're a little progressive leaning, but there's definitely a bunch of different size operators and a bunch of different talking heads. So I think the most I can do is just keep people informed.
Okay. Gotcha. What's the, what's the most interesting or important thing that you're focused on right now?
I would say, so I came into this role, I signed the contract to be executive director in November. I come in with a lot of context from different parts of nonprofit work and from just different communities. And so I'm doing a huge focus on making EatDenver part of this holistic food system. I think we represent and support independent restaurants, but that's part of a larger conversation, like where our food comes from and sustainable sourcing, to how we divert our waste post-consumption, to the mental health of our workers, to the diversity, equity, and inclusion of our membership. And so trying to focus not outside of our community, but just be more inclusive of the entire community and the entire kind of where we are as part of a larger food community is something that I'm pushing for.
Love it. I want to break down some of those. So let's talk about the mental health of workers. That's been something that the restaurant industry has come a long way over the last couple of decades, with understanding and recognizing the importance of mental health, the importance of, not having this work hard, play hard after hours, substance abuse. It's been a big thing that the industry's come a long way. You've got groups like Ben's Friends that have done some great work. And there's still a long way to go. It's a tough industry. It's hard work. It's long hours. There's been a lot of burnout. There's been a lot of people that left the industry from COVID that may not come back. And so now operators are really trying to figure out, like, how do we attract people to the industry, but how in the world do we just keep the people we have that are so good and work so hard and they're so important, but, how do we keep them engaged and keep them wanting to be a part of this industry? I find that to be something that a lot of, through doing our podcast, like a lot of owners are really scratching their heads trying to figure that out. Is that something you're seeing a lot of too? Are y'all talking about that a lot?
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a bigger focus. I think COVID because of the labor shortage, forced a lot of operators to consider, why aren't people working anymore, or how do we attract more talent? And that came down to better benefits, more reliable hours, and a focus on kind of listening to their employees and respecting them and their mental health. And so I know a lot of operators in town now offer health insurance benefits or have therapists on site, or have access to these resources and are encouraging people to take mental health days, or are just encouraging people to have a better work-life balance. I haven't worked in the restaurant industry in a few years, but I know that when I was there, shift drinks were like a huge thing, and I'm seeing more of people encouraging other behaviors. And so organizing outings for their teams, whether it's doing like a mental health and wellness week, or encouraging people to bike to work, or do healthy consumption weeks. And so I'm seeing more of that in the community, which is great. One of our community partners is Chow, which they were tabling at Ed Talks. It's culinary, hospitality, outreach, and wellness. And they're a huge proponent for health and wellness in the hospitality space. And so they do kind of happy hour or meetups on a monthly basis. They have a ton of resources. They connect with Kesed Wellness, who's another group in town who offers free therapy sessions for hospitality workers. And so I think more and more of these projects are being grant funded and are being more widely marketed to the hospitality industry.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Is Chow a local organization?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I can connect you with their executive director, Erin, if you'd like to sit down and chat with her too.
100%. You read my mind. I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely. Talk about what I'm trying to remember, Nate. The first thing, I just drew a blank on what I was going to ask you about, was the first thing you mentioned prior to mental health and wellness.
The food system.
Yes, it's been something you've been so dialed in with. I couldn't think of the right words. What I'm fascinated with that. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, my background's in agriculture and like natural resource management. So I think I'm coming in with the perspective of our food comes from somewhere. A lot of our restaurants are focused on sustainable sourcing. They do seasonal menus, not all, but I think we have to acknowledge that our food comes from somewhere, and that especially in Denver and Boulder, there's a huge focus on that farm to table, or like that fresh food movement, and knowing where your food is sourced. And so another one of our community partners is Zero Foodprint, and there's something that you can incorporate into your receipt. It's usually a 1% payback on receipts. So it comes out to like 11 to 13 cents a check maybe, but all of that money goes back to the nonprofit to be redistributed towards restorative agriculture practices. And so specifically, they have a program called Restore Colorado. All that money is going back into healthy soil projects and regenerative agriculture projects in Colorado specifically. And so people like Daniel Asher, who's really focused on local sourcing, that's affecting his bottom line entirely, because he's connected with those farmers. And so they're getting paid back to incorporate more sustainable practices, and then he can benefit from that, from increased yield on his produce. So projects like that. And then also we do an event in October called Harvest Week, and it's a 5-night dinner series. And we say 70 to 80% of the produce from that night is locally sourced. And so just focusing a little bit more on the conversation of supporting Colorado agriculture, or at least regional agriculture. Also got involved last year with the Colorado Food Summit that's hosted by CSU, and we helped coordinate a happy hour for that. So just trying to dip our toes a little bit more in those conversations.
Random question, but how do you define local?
I define local, I'd say regional to me is local, because I understand like restaurants can't source from urban gardens in Denver. We live in a metro area. So Front Range is local to me.
Are you familiar with Alan Savory?
No.
He did a TED Talk, which I thought was fascinating. You may find it interesting. It was about basically regenerative farming of cattle, and I thought it was really interesting. But so I feel like this conversation, I mean, I'm 48. I'm having this conversation more and more with like my friends and family and stuff. Like, where is our food coming from? Like, I mean, I grew up like just nobody paid attention to that, back in the 70s and 80s. And
yeah,
I say nobody. There were people, smart people like you, that would have been if you were around when I was growing up. But you mean there wasn't enough talk about that. Now I'm hearing that more and more, like, wait a minute, like, where is this, like, where does this come from? And what is this doing to our environment? And, you know, is it from, you know, frozen meat that was shipped in from some factory farm 1,000 miles away? Or, you know, if I'm going to have this burger, was it from, you know, a local cattle farm? Or if I'm eating this vegetable, like, people, the public seems to be thinking more and more about that. Maybe I'm in a bubble though, I don't know. But do y'all do a lot of education, public education about that? And do the restaurants do that as well?
You know, I think it's on a restaurant by restaurant basis. I know some say the farms that they source from. When we do Harvest Week, we shout out the farms that everything's sourced from, but not enough public education. And I know that it costs more money to source locally. And so I'm never gonna tell restaurants that's the way that they should do it, especially right now. But just communicating that to the public is something we try to do around our events that are more focused on agriculture and the food system. And I'm wondering if part of that conversation also, I mean, the average age of a farmer in the United States is like 66, maybe now 67. And so we're going to be faced with a decision at some point. There's no more farmers. And so I think there's going to be more of a movement towards people creating smaller scale farms. Like, no one wants to own a 5,000 acre ranch anymore. So what do you do?
Well, now there is the question. Demographics come into this in a big way. And when there aren't, you know, Big Food owns a lot of these farms, and they've bought up a lot of these farms. And then, you know, you've got this massive monocrop industry. And that's, wow. Yes, that's a long, big, important conversation. But it's a reality that we're going to be facing in the next decade in a big way.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's not going to be the focus of my work with EatDenver, but yeah, I mean, you have the monoculture and then you destroy the soil, and there's going to be drought upcoming. And so then we develop new technology for drought resistant crops, and then maybe the soil gets depleted a little more. And so I think the land that is used for agriculture right now, I wonder how sustainable that will be 50 years in the future.
Or before then. I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah. Well, you know, it's always funny because, like, I like go down these rabbit holes and I get really angry about that. But then I remember, like, you can't predict.
No.
You can't predict long, like what may change in the weather that may be good if things, I don't know, or what technologies that we can't imagine will be developed that will help. You know, I mean, we don't always have the food supply issue as much as we have a big distribution issue. And that's not just, that's like across the world. There's a lot of people that if we could get the food to them, they wouldn't have to be starving. And I know you know all about that. But that's another conversation. But I think about it a ton. And it's hard too, I would imagine, because, you know, you're running a restaurant. Like, hey, yeah, sure, I'd love to have local. Great, I'd absolutely, but I don't think people are going to pay $27 for a cheeseburger. Like, you know, I mean, it's a tough balance. Your operators, they've dealt with rising labor, rising food costs, rising rents, rising everything. And how do you manage through that as an independent who doesn't have economies of scale like a big chain does for buying and everything else? Look, I have the utmost freaking respect for people that own and run independent restaurants. And that comes from 16 years of doing this with Schedule Fly and getting to know folks like Dave and Dana and folks through doing, you know, just through serving them and being interested in learning about the people we serve. I didn't come into this with anywhere near the respect I have for people that run independent restaurants as I do now. Now I look at it and I'm like, it is one of the most challenging, difficult things that you can do. But it also is one of the most undervalued gifts to the communities that they serve. I don't think most people really appreciate how meaningful and important good, well-run, thoughtful, intentional, independent restaurants are to their communities. I think people got a little bit of an idea when they all got shut down in COVID and everybody was like, holy crap, how can I support my local independent restaurants? I don't want them to go out of business. I love these places. This is where I go to celebrate. It's where I go to mourn. It's where I feel connected to the community. It's, you know, and the dollars I spend there stay in the community. And people kind of thought about that. And now we're kind of back to, you know, so I got a taste of it. But I advocate to everybody I know. I'm like, I mean, I have even my kids, I'm like preaching, I'm like, go work in an independent restaurant. Like, even if you don't do that for your career. I mean, you learned at the Buffalo Wild Wings and the other places, it's like, even though, and those are chains, but like you learn that, like, it is, you said it, it's creative, smart, thoughtful, amazing people. It is the most unbelievable diversity. There's no other, like, I can't find anything where there's like the racial, ethnic, socioeconomic diversity that you'll find in a restaurant. Natural. It's not forced. Like, we have to have this. It's like, it's just, if you'll show up and you'll work hard and work together for this team and try to serve our customers. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care what color your skin. I don't care anything. Like, all that matters is that you want to do a great job for our customers and work hard as a team, and you're in, and you can, the sky's the limit. Like, you can come from nothing and bust it here and be creative and you know, put yourself into it really hard and eventually have your own restaurant and turn that into a restaurant group and hire great people. Like, that cycle can always repeat. It's an amazing, amazing industry. And I have the utmost respect, truly, truly, for the people that are in it. And it's why I was so interested in talking to you and your group, because I just, you know, you've got 275 people that own businesses out there in that community that are doing amazing things and come at it from a lot of different perspectives. And it's a phenomenal thing to do. So I applaud what you do, and I'm thankful for what you do. And I think what you do is really cool, and it must be a lot of fun because you get to know a lot of like badass.
They're the coolest people. I mean, I've had a couple friends tell me their ideas for opening restaurants and coffee shops now. And my advice to anyone who wants to open a restaurant is don't. Your profit margins are 3 to 6%. You are never going to make money. We'll never see you again. But it's the people who here don't and are like, but I can't do anything else. Like, it's my passion. It's my life. And those are the people who make it. And those are the restaurants we represent. And so what I want the public to know is there's this misconception that every restaurant owner and operator is like big bad businessman, big bad business person, makes millions of dollars a year. Like, it's just not the reality. And the reality is just, it's passionate people who, many are not even making an income, many can't pay themselves, but who can't see themselves doing anything else, who want to give back to the city and want to give back to their communities, and whose passion is just making food and, like you're saying, being that gathering place and sharing their passion with others. And you know, the people who go out and complain about expensive burgers or slow service, I just taking a step back and realizing that the hospitality industry has suffered so much over the past few years and like is still suffering, and much more patience and grace is needed. I think during pandemic, you're right, people really rallied and realized how much of the heartbeat of the city these restaurants are. And I want that sustained energy because they haven't changed. Like, those restaurants are the same as they were during COVID and still struggling as hard.
You know, I think that, yes, they are certainly not the big bad business people that are. There's a very big difference between, you know, owning a restaurant or a small restaurant group and being the, you know, the CEO of a chain with, you know, 5,000 units or whatever it is. I mean, this is a passion. It's a labor of love. It's long hours. It's constant. I find it fascinating just for the ability to problem solve across, like, 1 minute the freezer goes out at 3 a.m. The next minute, you know, your chef walked out the door, you know, quit at this location. Then over here you had a customer who, I mean, it's just like, it's just not, I couldn't do it. Like, I guess I say this so much because I couldn't do it. Like, I'm like, how do you do that? And they do it, and they do it every day. And it's sort of like, it's like when you have like you have a dinner party at your house and you have a bunch of people over,
you plan for it, you want it to go really well, you want people to have a great time, you think of every detail, and it's like really important to you. And then hopefully it goes well and there's no hiccups. And then at the end of the night, you're exhausted and you're like, oh, I'm so glad we did that. But oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's over. And I'm not doing that again for, 6 months. That's what they do every
every
single
night. Yeah.
every single night. They put a smile on their face. And so I think it's amazing. It really is an amazing group of people. So I'll always try to help people understand that. And it's, and I've said this on this podcast before, but I love this metaphor. It's what you're doing. It's what we're trying to talk about, what we're talking about right now. It's the story about throwing starfish. Have you ever heard this story about the little girl who's throwing starfish in the ocean? Okay. I love this story. It's the coolest metaphor. All right. So there's this dude and he's walking down the beach and he sees this young girl and the tide is going out and there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of starfish, for like a mile or two down the beach. And she's picking them up and she's tossing them back into the ocean. And the guy says, hi there, I see you're tossing starfish back in the ocean. Why are you doing that? She's like, well, the tide went out and I don't want them to die because if they stay here, then they're going to dry up and die. And so I want them to stay alive. So I'm picking them up and tossing them back in. And the guy's like, well, that's cute and all, but there's like thousands of starfish, over the next 2 miles that you can see out on the coast. Like what you're doing isn't really making a difference. And she picks one up and she throws it in the water and she looks at him. She goes, well, it made a difference to that one. And I love that story so much because if you look at it's just hard. It's like, it's hard to get people to understand that. And it's a mile of thousands of starfish, but every single time you toss one in, it makes a difference to that one. And then those starfish start talking and, it's the momentum builds. So these conversations are, you can look at the big picture thing and think, how do we ever get people to understand? But every time you have that conversation, it makes a difference. And so it's always meaningful. It's always worth having that conversation.
It's a good metaphor for the nonprofit industry. My thing was always, if I can change one person's life in some small way, then that was a good life, And, if EatDenver didn't exist, restaurants would still exist. But if we can facilitate some connection, if we can offer a mental health program that, improves someone's life in some small way, if we can have this listserv that people can connect over and you just feel part of a community and you're able to stay afloat because you got a referral, like that made a difference.
Just remember that every day. There's days when you're like, this is so hard. And whatever, just one little starfish, like that's all that, it makes the world a difference to that starfish.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to say that I started my career in anti-hunger work, and this is just another type of anti-hunger work.
That it is. Well, okay. On that note, there was I have his card and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was the first guy that spoke.
Brad Riebendale.
From Same Cafe.
Mm-hmm. Amazing human.
Amazing human, amazing what they're doing. I spoke to him afterwards because there's a place in Raleigh, North Carolina called A Place at the Table.
Oh, cool.
And same model. And Brad knows Maggie Kane, who is doing that in Raleigh. And so what they're doing that is similar, and there may be some subtle differences, but essentially it's like a pay as you can concept where if you come in and maybe you're experiencing homelessness and you don't have any money and you just want a good meal, it's not a soup kitchen, and you can come in and dine there, or you could come in there and say, okay, well, I see that your suggested price for this burger is $12. I'm going to pay $50 because I can and I want to contribute to the cause. I'd love to get your thoughts just about that model, because I think it's I pray that Brad is wildly successful with figuring out a way to scale that and grow it, because it's, oh my gosh, what an amazing concept. And I've been to a Place at the Table in Raleigh. In fact, on our homepage, Schedulefly's homepage, there's like hello, hi, I'm Will with Schedulefly video, but it was there. I was like, if I'm going to film this one place, that's where it's got to be.
Amazing.
Really awesome concept. I love that.
I know. I love that too. There's another restaurant actually in Englewood, which is just the city right over from Denver, called Cafe 180 that does the same thing. It takes probably like a huge leap of faith to open something like that you'll make enough money, or I know Same Cafe is a 501c3, so they get some grants as well. But to open something like that and to trust the community to support something like that. And Brad's model is so amazing because he has so much lived experience and experience being someone as part of that population who utilized that service, that he now comes in with a context of, I'm not helping people, I'm not feeding the community, like we are nourishing each other. And it's cyclical. It's not me giving people handouts. It's the community is supporting us and nourishing us, and we're giving it back. And I think that's the way that the model works so well, is that you're not thinking that you're better than the community you're serving. You're not asking people to share their experience. You're just treating people like people. And for Same Cafe, they have kind of 3 different methods. So you can come in and you can get a meal in exchange for volunteer hours. You can come in and you can trade produce in exchange for a meal, or you can come in and pay for your meal. And so in that way, it's dining with dignity, because you're not just coming in for a free meal, you're coming in and you're trading some hours, you're building a community. And yeah, it's genius. I really love Same Cafe and their whole model.
That was one heck of an inspiring talk that he gave. I mean, they were all fantastic.
The fact that he's such a good person, I told him, I said, I'd be the angriest human. I just don't know how you're such a compassionate person.
That was very raw. I mean, that was very, yeah, talking, just opening the curtain and just sharing everything that's in there. That was amazing. That was amazing. Good for him. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to watch it, it's at eatdenver.com/edtalks.
EatDenver.com/edtalks. So y'all have all the talks saved.
We have all of them recorded. They're online on EatDenver's website, so you can go watch Brad's talk.
Oh man, incredible. Really was. What else do we have? I missed anything? What else do you want to talk about that we haven't before I let you go?
I don't know. We have some upcoming events, I guess. The Big Eat, which is July 20th at Denver Performing Arts Complex, is Denver's only food festival dedicated to independent restaurants. I actually don't know any other city that does that. But it's like 60 food and beverage providers, and you pay one ticket price and you get to dine around and do bites and sips from all around the city. And we organize it by neighborhood so that you can go out and replicate it after the event and kind of say, oh, I'm in Lohi, I wonder what's here. Oh yeah, I ate at that restaurant. And just a fun way to introduce and get to sample all the bites. And then Harvest Week, again, we do in collaboration with the Grow House. And so that's our more holistic look at the food system, a really intimate dinner series in October.
Very cool. Very cool. And when is the first one?
July 20th is the Big Eat. That's our food fest. You should come out for that. It's really fun.
Oh, that's what I was asking. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I am going to let you roll. I really, really appreciate this. I love what y'all are doing. It was so great to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Time to do this. I'm going to follow up with you because we got to figure out what we're going to settle in on for sponsoring. But this is awesome, and just cannot thank you enough for the time and for the energy and passion and love that you pour into what you do, and that all the folks on your team there and all the restaurants in the Denver area. I mean, I like I said, I've been doing this a long time. We have customers all over the country. There's just something different and special about Denver, Boulder, your whole Front Range, that world out there of independent restaurants. It's people.
It's like the first place I've lived that, because food and beverage is competitive. I think Denver actually has too many food and beverage places for how many people live here, but it is so collaborative and everyone is so kind and shares resources. And it's like this camaraderie that you wouldn't think exists in such a competitive space. And that's why EatDenver works, is because people genuinely want to be a network in a community. It's really special. Yeah.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
Yep. Thank you, Kristen.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Will. Thanks for taking the time. Have a great weekend.
See you.